All right, everyone. So my name is Jabbar, and today we have actually a really special guest over here, Andrew. And Andrew runs his own roofing company. He started his journey working for his father's company, and now he has switched over to like social platforms, and he has grown a really amazing brand. So Andrew, can you give a little bit of background of what you do and how you started?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, first of all, and I always like a good conversation, so I appreciate you having me on today. But yeah, I work for a company called Masters Roofing based out of Memphis, Tennessee. We've done over 11,000 roofs since 2008, and I've been lucky enough to be a top performer for them for about 10 years now. It's my father's company, which makes it near and dear to my heart. It's a great working relationship between being able to go out sell roofs each and every day, and I actually started documenting that experience on social back in 2017, and we developed quite a bit of a little community that we have there now, over 19,000 followers. I think we have over 4,000 on TikTok and across other social media platforms. So that's kind of turned into its own thing as well. So I got the roofing sales stuff that I do each and every day, and then I document around it. Same thing that I've always done since 2017. But it's kind of turned into other opportunities that have presented itself. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. So honestly, the brand you have built is not only just a brand, like it's way more than that. I will tell you that and why, because I've experienced it. Like there's one guy in your community on Facebook. He is connected with me, right? And what he does is like whenever you post a video, he shares it to everyone, right? He shares it to me, he shares it on a Facebook group, he shares it everywhere. So that's kind of what you like the that's kind of the impact you are having right now on the community. So that's really awesome.
Well, yeah, and that's the kind of thing. I always try to share content that's valuable, but also being able to have those conversations and have a community where I feel like they can reach out to me whenever they want and ask me anything, and I'll answer it honestly as an open book. And I think if you want to build a successful brand, it starts with having that trust that if someone comes to you for advice, that you can answer the questions that they have. And I've been blessed enough to have mentors in the industry. My father's ran a very successful roofing company since 2008. My brother, he did consulting in the industry for many years. And he actually got to kind of see behind the veil a little bit with some bigger contractors around the nation. And so obviously we go out to dinner, roofing is kind of our life. So we talk about that amongst other things. And so I input that information, and ultimately, if people ask me on social, I just try to give the best advice I can possibly give them for what situation that they're in. And I think that resonates with them. And if you give the great advice, a lot of times that comes with the praise and the fandom and everything else that people get out of it. But it's so much fun. We actually just got back from Chicago, where we did the ABCs of Success for Roof Ivents, a product that I promote. And, it's good to get out there with other people that are friends as well as fans. But to have people come up, say hi, and be able to hang out and spend that time in person, and then go out and have drinks afterwards or, have dinner, and bring that community closer. It's great to see that it's even outside of me now. Like I feel like the group of people, the core group of people, my 10 closest followers that group would still exist without me, even if I wasn't there. And I feel that's the true test of a community.
That's awesome. So like honestly, you said you was a top sales performer, right, on your father's
Hmm.
company for like I think so like quite a bit, and then after that you switched to social, right? So you were kind of an old guy. So what made you switch towards like social platforms?
Well, really, I hated door knocking. Like I hated the traditional method of like having to go door to door, and I never had a good experience when I was younger. I would go up, knock door to door, and have these crazy situations happen where people answer the door and they're yelling at me to get off their property. Or one time I had a lady literally hold a shotgun up to me, and I just kind of said to myself, "Hey, you're a bigger guy. It might be a little bit intimidating out the door. And either way, it sucks to have to walk around this neighborhood in the mid of July, sweating trying to generate leads for the business. So I said there had to be a better way. And back in 2017, when I started, I said, you know what, it's early enough to where I can still think I can catch this wave and ride it. Because now it's a lot, you know this just as
Yeah.
well as I know it. In 2025, that's a whole different story. Starting a new platform today is completely different than it was, 15 years ago. So I'm glad I got on that wave. It's changed my life on the branding side of things, but also I wanted to prepare if anything happened, like living in what we're living in right now. You're starting to see mailing become more expensive. Door knocking, people aren't answering the doors as much as they used to. So you need everything on your side, especially when you're using targeted ads to drive business or Facebook groups. I think it's a valuable asset to have a brand and to produce consistent content, because the content, if it's good, it resonates with people when they give you a call. The problem that I don't think a lot of people know or understand is that it takes a while to develop that content creation aspect of it, right? When you first start, and I can tell you this from experience, if you go back and look all the way back at my content back in 2017, I thought it was great back then. It was nothing. It was terrible. But it developed over time into something that's really polished now. So when I do post a video to a Facebook group in a local area, people see that post and it resonates with them and they call immediately. Whereas if I was still posting the stuff I was posting from 2017, it wouldn't be nearly as effective. So that's what I try to tell people is like, hey, you might not be getting the numbers that you want to get right now, but you constantly have to work and perfect your craft as far as being able to generate quality content. And it's not what you're producing today that's going to get you the business. It's what you're producing a year to 2 years, 3 years from now, with that consistent practice being put in.
Definitely makes sense. So honestly, just like you mentioned, you hated door knocking. I as well, like I started with, honestly, with nothing, no experience at all, just a skill that I knew that I have implemented for my clients. But I s- I tried cold calling, I tried DMing people, I tried like sending thousands of DM, like I tried all of that. And honestly, in the end, one guy on Instagram said to me like, "Why would I trust you? Like you have like I don't know 10, 15 followers, right? So
Hmm.
why would I trust you with a business deal, right?" And that like changed the mindset for me, and I knew I had to get this thing up. I started building brand, and honestly, like I am not a phone guy. I'm not a camera guy. I'm not really good at these things, but I have some experience like with building content. I was like when I was small, I grew a YouTube channel actually, and I sold that when I was like around 13, 14. So I had that a little bit of experience, right? So I took that and I like combined with my skills, and like that's how I'm trying to build trust. Honestly, it's been going really well, and I also like appreciate you hopping on. Like, do you have
Yeah.
any advice for sales as well? Like because like sales is really important aspect. Like even if you mention like there are less people answering the door, like that's the case because there is a lot of like uh, increase in the industry as well. So what would you say
Hmm.
about that? Like how to stand out when you are on the door knocking someone?
Yeah. Well, and I, like I said, door knocking isn't really my thing, but sales is really a Pandora's box. You can go down so many different rabbit holes with sales. My biggest thing is you have to find the balance between asserting yourself as the expert with also being authentic inside of the home. Uh, usually the sales guys that I meet that are new to the industry, especially if they come from a sales background, they got a polished delivery when they're in the home. They're very crisp. They have their words put together. A lot of the times these guys are college educated. But when it's too polished and you're not necessarily setting yourself up as the expert, right? There's a lot of people that want to sit there and sell. They don't want to sit there and explain, right? So for me, it's you got to sit there and assert yourself as the expert in the home while still having enough authenticity to draw it back to where people feel comfortable with you, having that bedside manner. You can develop that in many different ways. I think the best way to do it is asking questions inside of the home, making people feel comfortable with you, because at the end of the day, if you make it about yourself from start to finish, a lot of the times that doesn't resonate. But if you sit there and you ask people what they want out of the experience, what are the top 5 things that that they want to go right about this project, you can clarify, set the correct expectations to ultimately get a quality experience out of it. But asking those questions kind of brings down the ice barrier, breaking the ice when it comes to talking to customers. So I think it's one of those things where you have to go in, you have to deliver information and set yourself up as the expert, give them their veggies, that's what I call it, but also have the bedside manner to kind of tie it back in and say, okay, here's the problems that we have, this is how we're going to address it. And I know this might be tough, but at the end of the day, if this doesn't get fixed, this is what your future looks like. And if you set those expectations and you guide them to a decision, ultimately you'll get a better result at the end of the day.
That's a really good advice, honestly. Like, you need to have a balance between like being a sales guy and also being authentic, and also you need to like show them what it's going to be like if you don't solve that problem. Like, if you don't fix the roof, what's it's going to be like when there's a storm, when there's water coming down your home, and you are sitting in the like maybe hall room with your kids watching the TV. So you need to like
Hmm.
be authentic and like develop that. That's a really honest advice. And
I had if you don't mind me
yeah,
kind of
sure.
elaborating on this, I had a customer the other week where he had a contractor out previously, that wasn't me, that did 3 separate repairs for him. And the expectations weren't managed properly on how that repair was going to look to the eye. And they left the homeowner really frustrated. He's like, I've done 3 repairs with this guy. This is the first one that we actually dug into the shingles, and it didn't match or maintain a uniform appearance. I was really let down with that experience. But he said, honestly, I don't want to replace this whole roof because I'm about to buy a third car, for my wife, because we got 2 cars and we need a third, to not put wear and tear on, and, these other twos are leased. So he explains the whole entire situation to me. And I said, hey, listen, I completely get it. At the end of the day, this home has to get fixed. Doing a repair is only going to not meet your expectations going forward because of the age of the roof. It's just too old. You're not going to find a shingle that matches. Plus, you have over 60 nails that are popping through the shingle, causing a leak. So this roof is toast, whether you like it or not, and it might push back having to get that car. But if we look at financing options together, right, we got 12 months, same as cash. Yeah, it's spreading out over 12 months, and it's still a hefty payment. That's going to get your new car a lot sooner when you can manage that, and so he ended up financing the roof. And going back to it, setting those expectations and just kind of understanding the situation that he was in. Listen, I want to buy a car right now. I don't want to pay for a roof. He was on that for a minute, but I said, hey, listen, I get it. But what is it going to cost if you have a leak in your garage again, or a leak in your kitchen and it buckles the hardwood floors and it's going to cost you $70,000? Is that going to put you further away from getting that car that you want? Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's better to bite the bullet and go ahead and pay for it. And so he ended up having that open conversation with him when he was just stuck on that one point the entire time. Once that it finally made sense to him, it's like, okay, I have to do business.
That's honestly, the way you framed it is really good. Like, you mentioned, if you don't get this done, it's going to cost that, and it's going to take you away from your like goal. And if you look at financing options, it will actually help you get to that goal which you want, a car for your wife, so that your other cars don't tear down. So it will get towards that goal a lot quicker if you look at these financing options, right? So that's a
Hmm.
really amazing way to frame it. Because honestly, like, if you are a sales guy, you might freak out at that point. Like, he gave that objection, right? I have
Hmm.
to buy this car really, so I don't want to like replace the whole roof. I want to just repair this like shingle, right?
Hmm.
But the way you framed is really amazing, and I think so.
And you got 2 cars that are leases. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to get a new car anyway within the next couple of years anyway. So it's like, do you really need a new car? No, you don't need a new car. You want a new car. Unfortunately, we got a roof standing in the way of that. But if you ignore the roof, that's your investment for a lifetime. So yeah, I think but having the bedside manner to sit there and work through that situation rather than just saying, oh no, you need a new roof. You need a new roof. And sometimes people need to come to that decision on their own, and how you guide them to that ultimately decides whether they do business with you or not.
That definitely makes sense. So I'm also like huge on mentorship, relationships, building relationships and networking. So you said like you had mentors growing up. Can you explain that and how valuable was that to you?
Yeah, like I said, I've been blessed to be at an organization that, Masters Roofing been in business since 2008. My father's been selling roofs since I was in third grade. I'm 31 now, so I've spent my whole life around this industry, and so um, in 2008, when my father started Masters Roofing, he had a group of sales guys that came over with him from another company, and those guys have literally been selling roofs for over 20 years now. So I literally have mentors around the office, which I don't think many people can say. A lot of people, they want the fresh guys that are out there door knocking every day, rather than the seasoned vets, or they struggle to keep the seasoned vets around. But having those guys around the office that's been in it for, over 15 years at this point, it's one of those things where if I'm going through an issue, where I'm having a hard time getting past an objection or a certain situation I keep running into inside of the home and I'm not closing, I can go to those guys and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? And a lot of times they give a lot of great insight and ultimately give you things that you can try going into the next appointment that gets you it. So I had my father, which, like I said, he's running a successful roofing company for as many years as he has. That's kind of the rarity in our industry. Most roofing companies last 3 to 5 years, not over a decade. So, having him to kind of bounce things off of, and he's always going to be the hardest on me. So knowing that if I'm going through something and I bounce it off of him, he's going to give me that authentic truth that I need to hear. That's one of the best things I can always rely on. My brother also is in the service industry, did mentoring, consulting for about 4 or 5 years, and he actually got to go around and see how a lot of these larger companies around the nation work. And so just hearing that in normal everyday conversations, I understand what makes a successful roofing company, what makes a successful sales guy, all those different things that I can just kind of absorbed over the years. So when people ask me like, hey, I'm struggling with my marketing and, I'm struggling getting leads inside of the door. Well, are you taking 1% of your gross sales every year and putting it back to marketing? Well, no, I'm not. Well, okay, that's the problem. Like there's systems and processes that you can put into place to take yourself to the next level. Are you doing those things? And so when people reach out to me on a day-to-day basis on Instagram or Facebook, YouTube or LinkedIn, it's one of those things where, I can kind of problem solve for them in real time because I've seen behind so many different situations and how companies are run.
So like you mentioned like you had that blessing of having a mentor in a daily basis conversation. So let's say if a guy or maybe a roofing business owner does not have that, because I personally know this, like having a mentor can really impact how you operate, how you like do the business and all of that. How to define the bet? Just give me one. All right. So how do you find the right mentor for your like business if you don't have any connections or any networking?
I think one of the best things that you can do is go to these events like the International Roofing Expo. You can go to the International Roofing Expo or NERCA, these different expos that are going on, and you can kind of get it. They put on all these seminars and these classes that you can go to. And for me, it's like I've been in the business for a long time, so if I go to one of those expos and I sit in on a class, and I can tell if someone's trying to sell me something or if they're actually adding value, right? And there's a few people in this industry that you can get a ton of value out of. And I think taking the step to seek mentorship out of those people is one of the best things that you can do. But also the other contractors that you connect with at those events. Like I said, when I go to the roofing expo, I meet, anywhere from 80 to 100 people while I'm there. A lot of times I'll try to grab drinks with them afterwards, and we'll talk about what makes my business great, but I also want to know what makes your business great. And so if you're looking for a community of contractors that you can feed off of, that you can get new ideas from, one of the best things you can do is go to these events and seek it out, because even if you don't decide to do business with a consultant because of the financial investment, maybe you might not have it at that moment. You can still meet contractors that you can get value out of, and take what they implemented and see if it's worth their time or not. Because a lot of times, if you go to these events, you'll get into a conversation where someone's using a service, right? And they'll say, "Oh yeah, you got to try this. This is game changing," right? Well, I feel a lot more confident about using that service when someone at an expo is saying from their own experience that they're getting value out of it. So I always kind of look for those feedbacks while I'm there. It's like, what products are you using? What equipment are you using that's a game changer? Different marketing services, different people that you consulted with. And that gives you an idea. And usually you'll hear several of the same names come up. And if I get three of them together, where if I heard three great things about a product 3 times over from 3 separate contractors, that's when I know I need to look into it for sure.
And honestly, what you have said is really amazing. And I will tell you a story on that. Like, I had a guy on, so he is in painting industry, right? So he was he wasn't making any money at the time, but his friend starting a painting company, and he grew, I think so, his revenue to $1 million in less than a year, right? So that friend that scaled his company to $1 million in less than a year invited that friend who wasn't making any money to a networking event, right? It was specifically for painting contractors. And at the time, he did not have the money to like go towards that event. But he said what? He said, I'll be resourceful. He went into like 3,000 debt, right? He went to that networking
Mm-hmm.
event. He networked with all of these guys. He learned all of the things that he learned from there, and he implemented those things. And in the next 3 months, he made like over 100 grand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this just shows like how powerful, like, getting the right knowledge, connecting with the right people, and networking can change your life a lot.
The great thing is we're not in like 2009 anymore. Like there's systems and processes out there that if you implement correctly and you follow it step by step, you will get a result. It's just, are you willing to go through the steps and processes to make that happen? So that's the beauty of the time that we're living in. If you want help, just seek it out. I mean, I have people all the time reach out to me about social. It's like, I can give you the formula, right? Whether you deliver on that or not, it's up to you. And I'll give it to them authentically, because I know, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'll give the advice and they're not going to do it. You know, I don't know why. I don't know the mental block there, but it is what it is.
So
I'm on the podcast. What's up? Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, I'll get it for you. All right. Sorry about that, Jabbar.
no worries, man. All right. So like what you just said, like I've honestly reaching out to people, do that when you don't have any network. There's no shame in that. I do this all the time, and I connect with a lot of amazing people, right? And that's how I'm trying to build my network as well, like building relationships and getting people to know about me, right? And honestly, I've had few people tell me, like, I've had a lot of people, like one guy, he runs an amazing web design and branding agency. I reached out to him because that's the space
Mm-hmm.
I am in, right? And I reached out to him. I was asking for advice, and he said, like, I will send you this video. If you watch it, then I'll answer your questions, right? And honestly, these guys, like, they're willing to mentor a lot of people, but the thing is, they say, like, we are willing to give this much information and value, but no one implements it, right? And if you're
Yeah.
going to reach out to me and if you're going to ask me for advice, you better do it, right?
I agree. I mean, that's kind of the most frustration that I get out of it sometimes is like when you get the same question over and over again from the same person. It's like, all right, we've been through this, and the worst is when they try to tell you you're wrong. Like I think it's this way and not that way, and But at the end of the day, it's like with everyone, just like with a baby at home. You can correct the action. You just have to, when they do it again, because inevitable they're going to fall back and kind of relapse on what they're doing. You just have to correct it and keep it moving. You have to have that forgiving love, just like if you were to be taking care of a baby at home. And usually the best part about that is like if they keep on making the same mistake over and over again, 2 years down the road, they're in the same spot that they were. And that's what they get. That's what they deserve. It's like if you want to come into any situation and you want to learn, you want to do better. I've had so many people take my advice and they're in a much better position today than they were 5 years ago. But all I can do is give the advice. I can't be responsible for, whether they take action or not. That's up to that person.
That's like definitely true, and like what you said is like really crazy. Like they try to correct you. I've not had someone tell me that, but now that you say it, like it's really crazy. Like if you are reaching out in the first place, it's because you acknowledge that you don't have the knowledge, and if you connect with the right people, you can get that knowledge. But if you try to like correct him, oh no, it should work this way, then I think so. It's disrespectful for that person.
I mean, I don't take it as disrespect. It's just like I'll work through the conversation with them. But it's just like some people think that they're right, and those people almost always you're never going to convince otherwise. And so that's the thing about ego, is like me in my situation is like, I go to these events and, I get praise from people, but I'm still learning. I'm still in the trenches each and every day, trying to better myself. And I think that's the approach that you have to have is even if you're doing things right and you're doing it successfully, you still have work to improve. You're not Jeff Bezos. You're not Elon Musk. You know what I mean? Like you're still this small. And that's where I think most people, if you have that mentality, you'll continue to grow and get better each and every day. If you don't have that mentality, if you think you're the best or you're something that people should look at, you're going to get humbled over time because, like I said, I think people get what they put out, and no one is better than anyone else.
That is like so true, and you have to humble yourself. You have to like put your ego aside, especially in business, because business is hard if you are trying to make it out there. Like as you said, most roofing companies don't last like 3 to 5 years more than that, right? That's the average.
Hmm.
Like really solid advice. So like we'll kind of now touch into like the online side of things, right? So you are now like as you said, like when you started back in 2017, you thought that you were that guy, you were producing really amazing content, and now you look back at it and you see like that was nothing, right? So what advice
Yes.
will you give on like building a brand that attracts high quality buyers for roofing?
Yeah, I think it's developing your own process of creation and what works for you. But for me, it's like I have three versions of content that I produce. I have my drone videos and on-site work that I produce each and every day, right? Where I go out to a job site and I've just developed this style, probably the most organic style that I've created. It's what I started out with. What got me my popularity was the drone videos that I do with the catchy music and on-site videos of different processes that we're doing with like installing the roof. That's by far still my most popular thing, so I still do that on a day-to-day basis. But over time, once I felt like I had a very good understanding of how to produce that content, then I developed a second style, right? Something else that gives you a break from that initial style of content that I create. So now I have the product presentations. I have I also have a third category where I sit there and I teach people. I bring that education aspect to the content. So I think for anyone, you got to develop your styles and start working in a direction to where you're getting better at producing that content because what you're producing today isn't going to be the best form of content that you produce. What you produce 5 years from now, it's going to look completely different. But the most important thing is putting in the practice each and every day by consistently making that content and consistently getting better. When I first started on camera, right, when I first started talking and doing presentations on camera, it was terrible. But over time, it got much better. And now it's to the point where I can press record, and most of the time I can nail a video on the first take. And it looks the way that I want it to look. But that's just because I've done it so much that it's developed into what it is now. And I think that's the most important thing. If I can tell anyone, is that you just got to get into the trenches and start producing content and being intentional about what you're creating. Take notes on what does well, right? What content that you created that, if say you're only getting 300 to 500 views a video and you make a piece of content that gets 2,500 views to 3,000 views, what did you do in that video that was different than the other video? Make notes of that. You have to be intentful about the content you're creating. So take notes on what works and implementing it on your next video, right? See if it works again. If it does work again, you got something. You keep developing it. And so that's my recommendation is at the end of the day, you have to find your styles that you like to create in, and then over time find out what works, dissect why it works, and keep progressing in that evolution of creating that style of content. Once that you feel like you master that, you move it on to something new, something different. You bring something new to the table that people can start to work off of. And it builds you a different type of follower, a different type of community, and it just gets bigger over time.
Like, if you say, I would say, like, I would give this example based on what you said. You need, let's say you start your fitness journey. You go to the gym. You start with a small weight, right? But over
Mm-hmm.
time, you will not be using that small weight and the same reps, right? You will increase that
Mm-hmm.
weight. So it's the same with content. Like, also the consistency, you need to put in the work daily. You need to put in the reps daily, and over time, you have to change, because the same weight that you used to lift like 5 years ago, you won't be lifting that right now, right?
Yeah.
So you have to
Well,
constantly.
and also let's stick on the fitness influencer because that's an easy one to break down. You might see the day-to-day progress of that person working out. Say if it is a fitness influencer, he might show you the workouts that he's doing each and every day, right?
Yeah.
He might show you him getting bigger over time, how he gets ready for a competition. But also he can transition into other content outside of that, right? He can make content about taking a trip to Aldi and what he chooses that's more healthier than what other people chooses, and still is a delicious meal. So like there's different forms of content that you can create and not just stand by like getting stuck in the route of just creating one style of content. So it's important to diversify as far as the content that you're creating. Everyone talks about the platforms that you're creating on, right? You got to diversify. Well, you got to diversify your content to begin with on one platform. If that's working, then you diversify for another platform. Give people something that makes them want to come back and see what you posted the next day. Because they know it's going to be different than what you produced today.
So it's like you have to be creative and constantly like evolving and changing and improving. That's some main
Hmm.
advice, right? All right. So
Yep.
now I will ask a kind of a personal question. Like, you are also a family man, right?
Hmm.
So how do you manage like business and family together?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I don't think anything is like the perfect work-life balance. I think that's a bunch of baloney, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I don't think it's true.
100%.
I mean, if you go hard, you go hard. And I think there's certain boundaries that you have to set with yourself. So, like for me, when I come home, I might get home at 6 o'clock, but I'm not touching my phone until my son goes to bed at 8:30. So I try to make the individual efforts to like, okay, hey, listen, when I get home, you got me from 6 to 8:30. Spend that time, go out, hit the baseball, play soccer, play Pokemon, have fun. And then when it's time to go back to bed, when he goes to bed, then I get on and I make my post for the night. And then I just kind of try to supplement with the vacations and having fun. Going to Disney, I think my son's one of the few kids that have been to Disney every year that he's been alive. So I try to make up for the rigorous schedule that I have. Going to have lunch with him on Wednesdays is something that I recently just added in. It's like, okay, I can break away from 11 to noon on a Wednesday. I can make that commitment. And then just being there with your kid. I think that's another thing. It's like emotionally connecting with, and asking them, like not only just sitting there playing with them, but asking them, how's their day going? Who's their best friends? I think that how you spend your time with your kids, because I know a ton of people that they're there with their kids. They spend more time with their kids than I do. But is it quality time? Is it really being spent with them? Or are they on their phones the whole entire time or watching TV while they're pretending to play with the kid? So I balance it that way. It's like I know that I got to go hard every day to make my dreams come true. And I want my son to be able to look at that journey. And that's why I started social media in the first place back in 2017. It's like if I ever have a kid, by the time my time's over, he can go back and look at my content. And he's even a part of the content in some cases. Like we went to a roofing
Yeah,
expo,
I saw that.
and well, and that means the world that you saw that too, because that's one of my favorite videos I produced in a while. But like he got to see me in action, but also he created some content with me. And so I hope that when he's 10 or 12 or 15 years old, that he can look back at those times and be like, this is what I did with my father. And yeah, it's not something, we have those individual memories, at Disney and all those other things. But I think it's pretty cool when a kid gets 15,000 views on Instagram. I think that's
Yeah,
pretty awesome. And so he doesn't recognize that now, but I think down the road he'll hopefully look back on that and find it amusing at least.
yeah. He'll probably like flex in school that my dad has this many views. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. So that's also like awesome, like because like honestly, most people get so much stuck in business, and this is also for me. Like, I'm kind of young. I'm kind of trying to make it. I'm kind of trying to build my brand, build trust, and like put myself out there, right? So
Hmm.
I also like need to implement that advice you said. Like even if I spend less time, and that needs to be quality, right?
Hmm.
If it isn't quality, then
Yeah.
you can be like spending a lot of time with no memories, right?
You got to go hard, man. Like that's the end of it, man. Like I can celebrate with my kid 5 years down the road when I'm in a different, like when I'm out of the day-to-day grind. But like right now, it's like I want to live a certain life and I have those ideas in mind. I want to be successful. And success comes at a cost. Like there's like and I understand people have systems and processes in place, but like for me, I am a creator. I create every day, and I have a hard time outsourcing that to someone else because I feel like it's not as authentic when it's already plugged into someone on Fiverr and they're using the same format for every single video that they're putting together. It looks different than when I do it. And so I feel that in order for me to create content at a high level, I have to be involved with it in the trenches each and every day. And I like it being that way. So for me, whether it's content creation or roofing sales, it's like I gotta go and make my dreams come true. Once that those dreams are made true, I can spend the time there. And I still make an effort to make sure that things are, but my brother, he has 3 kids. And he sat me down one day because I was feeling guilty about missing something of my son's. And he said, I can tell you this, Drew. He's like, with my first kid, I wanted to make sure I was at every little thing. I made sure that I wanted him to go to private school and to do all these different things. Once that he became 8 years old now, like it didn't really matter. Those things didn't matter. Those key moments of the big events mattered, but not being at the piano recital. So like you got to make it while you can. And I'll never forget him saying that to me. It's like, don't feel guilty about making yourself a success because at the end of the day, they're going to benefit from that in the future. Do you have any kids at home?
Yeah, I have a little brother, a little sister, so yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you can mentor them, but show them through your success how great you are. And like I said, that's one of the best things that I've been witness to is seeing my father. My father wasn't necessarily at every single event, but he was at every single football event. Like he wasn't around all the time, but he became a success. And seeing that success made me want to be successful and made my brother want to be successful. And that's more important than him being at every little thing. And I knew if he came to a football on Friday night, he flew in from Memphis to come watch me play football on a Friday night. I knew I had to go out and perform, because my father's there. And so, like I said, everything comes at a cost. You have to do your best to deliver for yourself in the immediate, so your family can see the benefits of it 3 to 5 years from now, you know? So don't feel guilty.
Yeah, don't feel guilty, and like that is also like one of my goals that I've developed recently. Like, I have a little brother. He's like around 8 or 9 years old, right? And when he sees me doing calls with people like you, and sees me on meeting, like trying to build my business, like honestly, one day he said, I want to sell something. I said, What do you want to sell?" Right? And it was a conversation in our local language, right? And he said, like, I want to sell websites. I said, Why do you want to sell websites? So, because you also sell websites. So it was kind of a thing
Yeah.
that he kind of watched me doing that, and he kind of said. So I said, all right. Like, first of all, try to learn English, because we don't speak English over here. We speak Urdu. That's a local language. So I said to him, first of all, learn the English, like learn the language in which you are going to be communicating with clients, and we, I will teach you all of it, right?
Hmm.
So there's kind
Well,
of steps to it.
and I think another thing to add to that is like, I told a lady we have a sister company that it's an escape room. It's right next door to us, and it's just a family passion. So it's a whole different, like, it's fun, it's exciting, it's a place that you can go and get locked in a room for 60 minutes and try to escape. I love the idea, and it's the best escape room in Memphis. But with me being as busy as I am with the brand deals that I have and Masters Roofing and marketing, I can do videos every now and then, but I can't do it all the time, you know? And I was telling one of the ladies that worked there the other day, I said, learn how to do the marketing because it's such a good business already. We're the most reviewed escape room in Memphis. You know, we have a 5-star rating. We have the best rooms in Memphis. Like, just do the marketing around it because I don't have the time for it, you know? But marketing is a skill that you can always use in no matter what aspect of your life you're in. You know, whether it's marketing an escape room or marketing Masters Roofing or marketing yourself as a brand. And if everything went away for me tomorrow, I could still make great videos for my son when he's a sophomore or junior year of high school, you know, to send off to the scouts for the major colleges and get him a scholarship that way. So marketing is one of those things where if you learn it and you learn to get good at it, you can take it in and apply it to any aspect of your life. Or if you want to start a food channel tomorrow, it doesn't go away. You can still create quality content. And so I think that a perfect example of that is my son came to me. This was a few weeks ago, but he's really into Pokemon right now. And he goes, Daddy, I just got all these new Pokemon at Target. He says, I want to do an unboxing video. Can you help me? You know, and I'm like, sure can. So we went out there and I gave him a whole little script. He stuck to it the best that he could. And it was his little first unboxing video. But it's all fun. And at the end of the day, marketing is a fun thing to be in. Creating videos is a fun thing to be in. To sit there and outsource it to someone else, I don't fully understand it because it just takes away the creative joy of being able to put things together. Even if it's stressful at times, because I'm not going to lie, it does get stressful. You get home from baseball practice at 8:30 at night, you have to have a post up by 10 o'clock and you haven't even started editing yet, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So that's kind of too, like, honestly, before this interview, I was on another call onboarding the client for a project, and I think a few hours before that, I had another call that was another networking call, and after this call, in a few hours, I have another onboarding call, right? So my brain is already like stuck in so many things, and I have to like still do it, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So it's kind of hard, but honestly, you have to do it, or otherwise, what else can be done?
that's what you do. You know, that's the thing. Don't think about it, just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget, my brother said, this was a while back, but my brother is great at handling tough phone calls. And he said, I've gotten paid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to pick up phone calls and make problems go away. And guess what? I pick up that phone call each and every time because that's what I do. That's what I was taught by our father to do. That's what I'm great at doing. And I can pick up that phone call no matter what it is and address the problem and solve it. And he said, that's the most valuable thing that I've gotten out of my life. He said, marketing's your thing, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, you just got to do it. There's no thinking about it or, oh man, I got this call coming up. I already done 3 today and did a podcast. I got to do this fourth one too. It's like, no, just go and do it. Don't even think about it. This is what you do for a living, you know? And just, it makes it so much easier when you just like, I do this. I'm an expert at this. I'm the best at it. Changes everything for you.
So true, man. So true. All right. So the final question for the people watching: what's the blueprint that you will give? Like, let's say you are starting over, you have the skills
Hmm.
and you have the knowledge you have right now. So, what blueprint will you give for someone to follow to be where you are at right now?
Ooh, 25, 25, it's a little bit different as far as where you're starting at. But if I'm starting over today, I think what I would do is I would post daily on each and every platform, at least one post a day, supplement with 5 to 10 stories in your feed, whether that's you just talking to the camera or, you know, documenting your day to day. And I think what you do is you watch how each piece of content is performing on each platform, right? If you start to gain followers on one platform and you're getting more of a strong, like you're getting better result on one platform than the other, then that becomes your main platform,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't mean that you neglect the other ones. It's just you got to understand that you have to nurture where you are successful at. So for me, it's like diversify the platforms, post on each and every one of them, find which one is most favorable to your content out the gate. Use that as your primary platform while sitting there and cross branding to the other platforms. So like if I do a YouTube podcast, which I highly recommend anyone, if you get offered a conversation to sit down and talk to someone, take it. You know, it doesn't matter how small the channel is, how big the channel is. I'm always in for the conversation because, you know, one, you're exposing yourself to someone else's following, but also you get a lot of organic moments that happen within that podcast that, you know, can be clipped up and posted on their channel. But also that people can see that you know what you're talking about, you know? So those organic situations only happen in long form content creation. They don't happen in short little forms. People aren't going to be sold on you on the 30-second video that you produced, right? They're going to be sold on you on how you carry yourself on these phone calls and the value that you give. So take as many conversations, even if you want to reach out to people and say, hey, you know, I have a podcast, you have a podcast. How about I be a guest on your podcast, you be a guest on mine? You know, I'd love to have you. This is what I do. Here's my content, my Instagram, my Facebook. Put yourself in those situations to where you can have those conversations because you're exposing yourself to other people's audience. I think in today's climate, how difficult it is to get anywhere on any social media platform, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, they're all difficult anymore. But the more that you can collaborate, the more you can expose yourself to outside audiences. And if you're presenting yourself in an authentic way and providing value through your content, you're going to win those people over. So for me, it's like I would put content out each and every day, at least one post a day that's as quality as you can make today, right? Post, have value, have meaning behind what you're saying rather than just something where you're trying to pitch someone on them to buy your product, right? Add value each and every day across each platform. Find which one works for you. Pour into that one. Build a network in that one. Try to get on as many podcasts as you can. Cross collaborate. Go to your local B&I meetups or media meetups, website design meetups. I'm sure there's plenty of those on X. I know X has those open forums where you can go and you can talk in the website space or any little niche that you're into. Just put yourself out there as much as possible and then redistribute to individual Facebook groups as well. Are you familiar with Facebook groups?
Yeah, Facebook groups are honestly really amazing way to like generate leads for your business.
Yes. And I think it's great for business, like as far as the way I source it and the way I operate in it with posting content to it, but also like understanding that if you're competing against the whole algorithm of Facebook, it's extremely hard to win because you're going up against The Rock who posted that day. You're going up against, you know, if, you know, Messi decides to post something about soccer, that's all being factored into that algorithm. But when you look at individual Facebook groups, right, you can find a roofing group or a website group, and you can sit there and post your content in there, and you're not competing with the rest of Facebook. You're competing with everyone else in that Facebook group. So the competition is a lot lower, and a lot of times the quality of content that's being posted into that group anyways is terrible. So if you're actually in there adding value, right, that makes a difference. That's going to get likes. That's going to get comments. You're going to be at the top of that group. And if that group is, say you got 40,000 people in that group, every single one of them are seeing your content that you posted to it, right? So I think Facebook groups is extremely underrated. But I think, I know that sounded like a lot to kind of fully grasp, but that's the thing about social. It's like it's not just one thing. You have to understand how everything works, and that's how I would break it down if it was me. If I'm starting over today, you have to leverage things outside of the algorithm to get your the reach that you want.
Another thing with Facebook groups is like, if a group is of like 40,000 members, there are going to be like maybe 5 to 10% like people posting, right? The rest are just watching. So the competition is a lot lesser than you expect, right? So if you are
Yes,
there
correct.
in the 5 to 10% posting content, and you are the one that's producing the most valuable content, then you're of course going to be at the top. And also I think so I need to
Um,
take your advice as well, and I need to ask you to have me on your podcast as well.
Yeah, well, I actually don't. I stopped doing the podcast that I had because I just ran out of time. But I definitely would love to have you on if I started back up. I'm thinking about doing something with Masters Media. I want to do something that's in person. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is like I want to have something to where people come in. I have a full studio set up, and I can have a legitimate 2 hour conversation. You know. And so I'm working on that right now. We actually recently just talked about it, about turning our conference room that I'm sitting in right now, putting a table in here and having microphones that come out and just like a makeshift little setup to where you could put podcasts together. So that's kind of, it's in the works, but it's taking a little bit of time to get set up. But if that happens, I'll definitely make sure that you're on it for sure.
Hopefully we'll see your podcast soon as well.
Yeah, it needs to come because I get berated by people about it every day. Because I did one for a while and it was a standalone podcast where I just sat there and talked to the camera. But it's hard when you're just talking to a camera. You know, having a conversation, you get those individual moments like we just had, like where I broke down that whole entire blueprint of how I would operate if I was starting on social today. If you didn't ask that question, that wouldn't have came out, you know? So great question. And most importantly, yeah, people ask me all the time about the podcast. It should come out at some point. I'm not going to make any promises because I don't know when it's going to happen with all the other stuff that I have going on. But it's definitely in the back of my head for sure.
Yeah, and also another thing that you mentioned, I want to like emphasize on that as well. Like, and that will be the final thing because it's getting too long. Want to emphasize is like you mentioned, be a guest on as many podcasts as possible, right? Be
Hmm.
like put yourself out there. So now I would say I had one guy, right? The painting guy that I mentioned, that scaled his painting business to $1 million in less than a year. He took a program for like door knocking, right? And
Hmm.
I think so half or maybe a 30% of his business came from door knocking, right? So I'm not sure, but yeah. So that's he was explaining the program like he took. He said he had great results over there, and someone watched that, and someone commented on YouTube that can you can you connect me with that guy who does that like program for door knocking, right? And then he
Hmm.
messaged me on Instagram, and then I connected him to that person, right? So can you see like just a little bit mention in that long form content, and it was such a long like video. He was watching that and he found that valuable, and someone just got a lead, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Well, and going back to it, I remember the first podcast. This is what stopped people from doing podcasts, right? Is that they're nervous about how it's going to go. I remember my first podcast. It was with a local painting company here in Memphis, Caldwell Painting. They had me on, and he just saw my content locally, and so he asked me on his podcast, and I was so nervous because I'm like, man, this is going to be a whole thing where I have to explain and break down who I am, what I do for a living. It's like an interview almost, but it's a little bit more high pressure, when it's being recorded. If you blow an interview, you can just, you can just leave and not worry about it. You just didn't get the gig, right? But with a podcast, it's recorded. But you got to understand, you get better at doing podcasts as time goes on. So Once that I got done with that podcast, I was like, man, I was so nervous before going in, but I did so well that I immediately wanted to do another one, you know? And I did another one, and I did another one, and that built my brand locally. And I was on the Roofing Success podcast and Adam Bensman podcast, some bigger ones that got me a lot of traction. But I would have never took that chance if I never did that first one. So getting started is the most important thing.
Getting started and also not caring as well. Like honestly, I would say I personally got a lot of hate. Like literally, when I reached out to people, there are some nice people and there are a lot of nice people, but I got a lot of hate and a lot of like literally fuck offs and a lot of harsh things as well. But at now at this point, I don't even care, right?
Yeah,
I could just start a recording and I won't care. Like even if I like fumble, I know it's done and I cannot change it. So you have to change that perception if you want to do like things differently and you want to do something.
it's sales 101. That's the best part about it. It's sales 101. It's no different than going up to a girl at a bar. You going into people's DMs, right, and asking them if they want to be on your podcast and them telling you to go fuck off is no different than if you go up to a girl at a bar and say, hey, can I buy you a drink, right? She might say yes. She might say fuck off. It's just the way it is. But if you get yourself hung up on the objection, right, that's going to keep you from going up to the next girl. The next thing you know, you're going home by yourself. That's a funny analogy. But at the end of the day, that is sales. You can't be afraid of rejection in this business. And so you just got to put yourself out there. And even when I go onto a podcast, I don't know what I'm going to say, or how it's going to go. But I know that I am an expert at what I do. I've been doing it long enough that I know it like the back of my hand. So whatever comes out, it is what it is. It's going to be what it is. And either way, I'm going to have a fun conversation, and a lot of time we get a lot of value out of it.
Percent. Alright, man. It's been an amazing conversation with you. So hopefully somebody find this valuable, and at the end of the day, they take action. Because if they don't take action, if they just keep watching it, then nothing will change. So hopefully somebody does that.
I appreciate you, brother, for having me on, and like I said, best of luck on this podcast. I felt like we got a great value out of here today, so thank you for having me on.